Coach Franco Says is a proud member of the Philippine Podcast Directory. Come check out the page on Facebook and listen to the amazing lineup of local podcasters this country has to offer.
Like 3, 2, 1, and we have a very special guest. We have Mcdojolife himself. Hi, Rob. Thank you for doing this, man. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me, dude. I love talking shop.
Yeah, dude, and we're gonna talk a lot. So before anything else, and for everyone who's going to encounter you for the first time, I'm super curious. Like, what's your martial arts story? Like, how did everything begin for you?
Oh, well, I was born with a cleft palate and lip, so I have scars on my face. I had a lot of surgeries when I was younger, and so going up through school was pretty rough for me. I got picked on and beat up and teased quite a bit. And then when I was in 8th grade, I wound up getting jumped by a group of kids. And it was like 5 or 6 kids. And they beat me up as soon as the bell rang for class to be out. It was a gym class. And they stepped on my head. They kicked me in the face. They stabbed me with pencils. They beat me up pretty good. And they beat me for about 5 minutes. The only reason I know it was 5 minutes was because the bell rang and they started beating me up. And they were still beating me up when the next bell rang. And that means you're supposed to be in the next class. So after the 5-minute gap there, 2 teachers stood there and watched the entire thing happen. They did nothing about it. They just watched.
Okay.
And then I don't know why. I think it was some kind of school policy, but I could be wrong. And so they just let it happen. And then after the second bell rang, all the kids kind of scattered. And then my friend who was late to the class, he walked up and he helped me up and he walked me to the nurse's office at the school and he handed me a card and he said, "You need this." And it was a card, you need this. And it was a card for karate. And so my mom was always worried that I'd get hurt doing any like team sports. She didn't want me to do baseball, football, any of that, because she was worried because of all the surgeries I had as a kid that I'd get hurt. And so a month later after that incident, my mom signed me up for karate and I've been doing it ever since. So I've been doing martial arts now for 23 years. So been doing it for a while.
Okay. So it's like you're still doing karate?
No. So I started in karate just to run down the resume real fast. I'm a 3rd-degree black belt in karate. I'm a 3rd-degree black belt in something called Do, which is a weapon system not too many people have heard of. If you want to look up my instructor, his name was Master Lee Barden. You can look him up on YouTube. He passed away about 2 years ago. I'm a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a 6-0 amateur boxer, a 4-2 amateur kickboxer. I ran a martial arts studio for 4 years. I was a striking coach when I started Jiu-Jitsu, which is about 9 years ago. And then I've been doing martial arts business consulting for about a decade. And then I've been running Mcdojolife for about 8 or 9 years now.
Wow. It's like everything got. I mean, what was the fork in the decision making wherein you just decided, okay, I love martial arts. I think this is something I want to do for the rest of my life. And then what was the thought process coming into that decision?
Well, I actually came to that decision much earlier than I think most people do. Because like I know most people around college age don't know what they want to do with their life. They're like, well, I want to do this and they don't. I pretty much knew after my first year in karate that it's what I wanted to do. And, I had great mentors, to be honest. I learned a lot of what to do and what not to do in my life from my instructors. And it wasn't a hard decision for me. Like up until the turning point, which made it like a future, like solid career for me, was I knew I wanted to be an instructor, but I thought that what I would do is join the military and I was going to work for the military, which was my goal. And I was going to be a martial arts instructor through the military. I was going to find some way to teach in the military. And the day I went up, because I had taken my what's called an ASVAB test, which is like your placement test for the military. Yeah. After I took that test, I signed up I went to the recruiter's office with my test, and he was like, "Hey, here's a list of jobs. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to circle 10 jobs that you want." And it was like it was like 5 or 6 pages, so there was plenty of jobs. And he was like, "Just circle 10 jobs, and we'll see what fits best for you, and we'll narrow it down when you come back. When you come back, we'll get you all signed up and enlisted." I was like, "All right, cool." So I walked out, and the day I came back, the next day, I get out of my car to walk up to the recruiter's office. And as I'm about to walk in the door, like literally walking up to the door, my phone rings and it was my instructor and he offered me a job. And so I was like, well, do I join the military? I can walk through this door, or do I just, do I teach martial arts? And I made the decision to teach martial arts, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow. Talk about major decision making. And then from karate, then from doing karate, like what was the next one? What was the next martial arts that you started to train?
So I started in karate when I was 12, and then around the age of 15, my instructor started doing these fight nights in a bar called Plush, and it was a nightclub. And so what they would do is every Friday, and then they eventually changed it to Sunday. But every Friday they would take a boxing ring and they put it in the middle of this nightclub. And anybody that wanted to box could do it. They would let anybody do it, anybody. And so it was a pretty wild thing, man. I even uploaded one of my fights from there onto my YouTube channel, but it was like a 2-on-2 fight. And so we had 2-on-2 boxing matches, 3-on-3 boxing matches. We had 1-on-2 boxing matches, and anybody could sign up the night of. And people were drunk, and like there was fights going all night. And I was 15 years old when I said I wanted to do that. But the problem was that club was 21 years and older. Yeah. So I convinced my instructor to let me fight. And he said, hey, you can fight, but you have to fight first and you have to leave afterwards. Because it's a bar. Yeah. And so I convinced my mom to sign that permission slip. And she signed the waiver. And then I go. And the first fight that I had was versus a dude who was 30 years old. So he was 30 years old. I'm 15, but we were the same weight class. And I wound up winning by basically sheer luck. I was terrified. Like I covered up. He gassed himself out. And I got lucky and broke his nose. I just got lucky. I threw a punch, broke his nose. And then he didn't answer his corner basically because his cardio was so shitty in the second round. So he didn't come out of his corner in the second round.
Blew everything on the first round.
Yeah, so that was my first transition into boxing, and I loved that. So I continued to do that. And then they started incorporating kickboxing into those same fight nights. And I was like, oh, well, I already know how to do karate, and I've been doing boxing now for quite a while. Let's put them together. So I started doing kickboxing. And then after that, I got picked up by a team, international kickboxing team called Team Full Circle. And I got to travel the country, and we went up to Canada, went to Mexico, went to Ireland, and I got to travel the United States kickboxing on that international team, which was very cool. Even Sage Northcutt was on that team when he was younger. And so I did that for about 2 years. And then after that, I decided, okay, well, I want to open up my own martial arts studio. I opened that up for about 4 years. And then I was like, well, I want to continue to do this, but I'm doing jiu-jitsu at the same time that I open up my martial arts studio. So I made like this big change in my life. I was like, I'm going to be an instructor, and at the same time, I want to learn jiu-jitsu. So I started taking jiu-jitsu, opened up my school. About 4 years in, my jiu-jitsu instructor was like, hey, man, why don't we buy you out? So like whatever it is that you're doing is working, because I was teaching a very specific way. I'd go to schools and teach on site. So I go to like elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and I teach right there. And I was making a crap ton of money. So my instructor was like, why don't you do that for us? And I was like, okay, well, pay me. And so he did. He bought me out. And then, so I just made jiu-jitsu a full-time thing. So I became a striking coach for that studio. I was teaching all the kids' classes at the time. And then McDojolife randomly just blew up because I was doing McDojolife in there. And then randomly it just blew up one day. And Joe Rogan started talking about it. And a lot of really influential people started following the page. And I felt like, I was making enough money doing McDojolife full-time and it was taking up so much of my time that I might as well just do that full time. So I stopped being an instructor. About 2 years ago, I stopped being an instructor, and I just made McDojolife my full-time job. And so ever since then, this is all I do. Okay.
Speaking of the page, this is something that a personal question is like, how did it came about? Like, what was the light bulb moment where like, I'm training. There are a lot of like mainstream fuckery happening here, so what do I do? Do I just share it? Do I create something out of it? Like what is the story behind McDojolife?
Well, I actually got brought in to assist a class one day. So at the time I was only like a 2-stripe blue belt or something like that, maybe even less, I don't know. But my instructor was like, hey, I'm not feeling well today, will you do me a favor and come in and teach the noon class? Just run him through some basic drills and then spar. I was like, all right, cool. So I come in and I teach the class, and then after class is over, we're all just standing around talking. And then the subject of McDojos came up, and we just talked about that for a bit. And then everybody left except for one guy. And so that one guy stayed behind, and he was only there. It was only like his second jiu-jitsu class ever, like second martial arts class ever. So he pulled me off to the side and he goes, "Hey man, I heard you guys talking about a McDojo, but I didn't quite understand. What is that?" And I was like, I explained to him what my version of a McDojo is, which has now become the basis for the 5 rules of the page. And he was like, "Oh, well, how come no one does anything about that?" And I was like, I don't know. I have no answer for you. I do not know. And so that night I went home and I just thought about it. And I was like, I couldn't not think about it. And so the next day I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll try to start. And so I did. I started the Facebook page at the time, which is no longer there. Unfortunately, because we had like 100,000 followers before Facebook took it down, which is ridiculous.
Why?
What? But
a lot of people reported the content, or Facebook just decided?
No, just one guy. Just one guy. One guy reported a piece of content that he didn't like because he was in it. And yeah. And over the years, like that page.
Come on, I'm like, wherever you are, fuck you. I love that page.
Yeah. But it's all right because there's so many different social media platforms, and Facebook is like one of those things where it's slowly but surely being phased out. So like you see all these new platforms coming up. So just because I lost 100,000 followers there, financially it didn't feel good. But what's going to happen is another and another and another.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Stop me from doing what I want to do.
There's always going to be a new platform to provide content and to create an audience.
Basically, I get paid to call out people on their bullshit. I get paid to call people out for being frauds, fakes, phonies, and liars. And it just kind of has snowballed and developed into its own entity. And like what's really interesting to me is so many people follow the page, but don't actually hit the follow button. Like that's kind of fascinating to me, because I'll get like all these people and I'll start noticing the same screen names over and over and over again. And when I notice, I'll just send them a message. I'll be like, "Hey man, I appreciate you like messaging, but like maybe you should follow the page," you know? Because I think people go to it now like out of habit. So they won't even like, they'll just type it into their search bar and go search for it. Like on YouTube, amazingly enough, on YouTube, right, I can look at the analytics and see where my traffic comes from. And 75% of the traffic that I get is people who actually type in the words McDojolife. And like, you know, so that's crazy to me. It's like, that means that when people came to the page, they knew the name and they knew what they were looking for. It's like, dude, just hit the follow button. You know?
Yeah, it's going to be part of your timeline. Come on, make life easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the initial thought of the page is just trying to expose. For sure, it's just about creating awareness and, of course, being funny and providing entertainment.
It actually didn't start off as like a satire page. Because like now it's kind of become like a satire page where you look at it, you laugh, maybe I make a little joke. But it started off as like these long essays. So what I do was I go on there about once a week, and I'd only post once a week. I'd spend the entire week researching a specific school that I know was fraudulent. And I gathered all the evidence that I could. And then I'd write out like 5 or 6 paragraphs worth of why these things were bad. And then I post screenshots of all the evidence. And then like no one cared. No one gave a damn. And then one day I just was like, oh, well, I got something to do today, so I don't have enough time to post. So I just reshared some funny video. I don't remember what it was, but I reshared it and I move on with my day. And I remember coming back to the computer and I had like 100 more followers than I did. I had like way more comments, way more likes, and way more shares on this one thing that I did than any of the other stuff that I had put so much time and effort into. And I was like, well, why? And so I started playing with it. And over the years, it's kind of developed to what it is now. Like really short, like I just say maybe one sentence, maybe like a few words, and that's it. And I realized what I was doing was I was leaving out people's ability to make their own comments. Because I was saying everything that needed to be said. They didn't need to feel the need to say anything. So they would just thumbs up. And so that would be 100%. So, but now I kind of leave it a lot more up to the individuals, because I realize that it starts leading people down rabbit holes. So like, let's say hypothetically, I post something, but I don't say what my opinion is about that thing. I just post it and I don't say a word. And then people go on there and they defend it. And so I go, oh, why are they defending this? So I click on their page and I start looking and I go, oh, it's because they're a part of this organization. They believe in this magical power. And so by me shutting up, it allowed me to see so much more of other people's opinions. And it allowed me to get a better viewpoint of, okay, well, this is one fraud, but you don't realize how much influence that person has until you see their students. And so like you see one guy, for instance, if I just said the word Dan Inosanto, because we talked about him earlier, right?
Yep.
Dan Inosanto by himself, you'd be like, all right, cool. This guy knows what he's talking about. People who don't know that name would never know how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that guy impacted in the martial arts community.
True.
Right? But then all of a sudden you start looking at his students, you're like, wow, this dude's got this huge reach. Well, it's the same thing with like a fake master. Just because we haven't heard of him doesn't mean that in his circle, he's not very popular with a lot of people perpetuating a lie. And so that's kind of the way I do things now is make a little joke, sit back and just start researching what's going on.
And then let the verbal jabbing happen in the comment section.
Exactly.
That's why for me, every time I see a funny post, I'll automatically read majority of the comments because I know it
gets brutal in there, man.
Yeah, comment section is always gold for me, bro. It's the narrative that I'm hearing. It's like, so how did the page turn from something that would provide information and just create awareness about whatever bullshit is happening, and now I it's just how I see it. I mean, you could please correct me if I'm wrong. Like, how is it slowly turning into your advocacy? Because now that's what I'm seeing.
It always was, you know, it always was a page meant to like kind of show people what there is out there in the martial arts community. One, every country has their own martial art, right? They all have their own standards, right? And you can pick the major ones, but even like, for instance, in Indonesia, Silat has over 200 different versions of Silat.
Yep.
You know,
That's
karate
true.
has, if I remember, like 1,000 different versions of karate, if not more. And so they have all these different things. Well, it's hard as somebody who's new, who had never done martial arts before, to look at each one of those things and have a vast understanding of what they really are. You kind of get a generalization based off of what you hear and what you see, either through media, through sports, or
Stories.
Through your friends, or people you know. Yeah, exactly. So I still know people today who believe these amazing lies that are astronomically ridiculous, but they still believe them. But that's just because that's all they know. They only know the lie. And so the goal is to help people understand, like, look, some of this behavior that you're accepting is not good behavior. They're just lying to you, making you feel like that's okay. And it's not. Like, you know, I've seen so many videos of like these guys who were teaching full contact boxing in the concrete. And then I'll see videos sent to me of guys dying because of that, getting hit, getting knocked out, head hits the concrete, and they die. And so, like, when I talk to the instructor truly believes that that behavior is okay. He goes, oh man, there ain't no mats in the street. It's like, dude, of course there's no mats in the street because that's the street. But you're preparing your students as realistically as possible to get them prepared for whatever scenario you want them to be prepared for, whether it be boxing, kickboxing, self-defense, whatever it may be, jiu-jitsu. But at the same time, you're doing that as safely as possible as well. So doing something unsafe doesn't make them better fighters. It just leaves them more open to injury and or death. That's not helpful to them. I can't teach a dead student, you know? Like, I can't teach a dead 100%. Student. So you want to keep your students safe. You want to keep your students healthy. You want to make sure that they continue, but you can't abuse them. And making them do stupid shit like fighting out on concrete, that's abuse because they don't know any better. They're just following the leader blindly. Like me personally now, I have the ability where if I attend one of those classes, I can just be like, no, like, cause I don't have any stake in the game. I'm not your student. I'm not like here to perpetuate whatever art you're doing. I'm just here to learn. But when I see something that's unsafe, I just say no. Like, no, I'm not doing that shit. Like, you can be mad at me all you want, but I'll be alive and not injured. You know?
That's true.
So, same thing with like people who spar like 100% all the time.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, so that's going to help you out maybe for a year or two. Like maybe for a year or two, you're going to be just as badass until you catch that first ACL tear, until you catch that first knockout, until you really get injured and you're out from training for 6 months because you broke something. Like that doesn't help you in the long run. Or like any of us, we're going to get old.
Yep,
We're
that's
all
true.
going to get old. What I want to do is I want to age gracefully and still be able to train in my 60s and 70s at a nice steady pace because I enjoy it. I am under no delusion that in my 70s that I'm going to be some pie may badass who is going to just grow into like the superhuman, supernatural master. That's not real. But people in their head think that if they just train enough and train hard enough that that will happen. No, your body's like everybody else's body. It will get old, it will get frail, and eventually walking and breathing will become much harder than they used to be. It's not going to get better because you train. Martial arts is not the cure-all. Martial arts is a sport. It's an activity. It's something that you learn in order to help protect yourself, get friends, get a mentor, lose weight. It does a lot for you. But one thing it doesn't do is reverse the aging process. As a matter of fact, if you abuse your body enough, it's going to push the aging process faster. So you'll be more crippled sooner, you know?
This go. I had a guest on the podcast before. His name is Sixto Carlos. His name is his full name is Dr. Sixto Carlos. He's probably for me, he's probably the best weapons training and hand-to-hand combat specialist probably in Southeast Asia or even in Asia. He echoed the same sentiment that there's no point in being a gym champion. There's no point going or sparring 100% if you're not gonna earn like 5 million pesos or like a million. I mean, it's not really worth it. So when you train, you have to put everything in context. You have to put safety as a priority, and you have to put and compartmentalize like what is your mindset and how do you approach training in general, because if not, you increase the chances of injury. If you get injured, exactly, you don't get to train, you won't be able to compete, and you'll end up missing something that you love to do. So I mean, it's so nice to hear that a lot of that mentality is slowly proliferating now compared to, like, for example, in probably early 90s, or everyone just wants to be a tough guy. Everyone just thinks that the Spartan way of doing things is
And
the
you
way to
get
go.
that a lot with younger guys now too. Like a lot of younger guys who are coming up through more like MMA camps and things like that. All they want to do is fight, and they're not interested in any of the other things that come along with the arts.
Yep.
And that's up to them. That's fine. That's for them. But I think, in my mind anyway, that those people are missing such a beautiful thing to learn when they eliminate everything else but just the violence.
Yep.
You know, the violence is a part of it, yeah, but it's controlled and it's understood, and it's about growing and being better at other things in your life other than just kicking, punching, choking, and throwing people. You know, and I think that when I see younger guys and the only mentality or the only thought they have is, will this work in a fight? That it kind of misses a little bit of the point. Like, for instance, I'm real big about labeling. So I think in martial arts, correct labeling is huge for me. If somebody does something like stunt work and they want to do stunt work and they want to be an entertainer, they don't want to be a fighter. So why do I care that their technique is not effective? That's not the point. They're just doing it because they're doing it for fun. Okay, cool. Why do I care that if somebody wants to do like a sport karate, for instance, that they're up there doing a kata? Why do I care? They're not trying to teach that to me, and they're not teaching it as self-defense. Usually they're teaching it 9 times out of 10 in NASCA, WACO, things like that.
Yep.
They're teaching that kind of thing, or NASCA, NBL, sorry. They're teaching that kind of thing for entertainment. And those people like Matt Emmett, Caitlin Deschelle, Taylor Lautner, they're now making a shit ton of money as a stunt performer. Meanwhile, everybody else who was making fun of them doesn't even train martial arts anymore.
Yep.
You know, and so like the joke is kind of on you at that point. Like if all you care about is like ego and who can beat up who, you're missing a lot of what should be going on in your martial arts training.
This brings up another facet of training, which is the purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, the purpose. It's either you want to entertain, you just want to get fit, or do you really want to know the art aspect of whatever it is that you're training? So, I mean, hearing this from you that makes me appreciate a lot of the things that I went through the evolution of martial arts here in the Philippines, because I'm more or less that is the timeline. Early 90s, like 80s, 90s, everybody just wants to be the tough guy. They just want to have the reputation of being the baddest guy on the street or the baddest guy in this particular city. And that was the primary motivator why people studied martial arts. And as much as possible, you want to put structure into what you're teaching. And at the same time, I really appreciate the fact that you want people to appreciate the art aspect of training, because that's what we're doing. Or specifically me, when I teach class, I make people understand that you are doing something that is special and there's an intrinsic value in it. So that is the art part of learning combat. That's why it's called martial arts. And I mean, I'm very happy that you resonate the same sentiment. Now, going back to, how was your reaction to your first ever fake martial arts video, and what was
Mhm.
how was, like, okay, how do I share this and how do I make this
Oh man,
blow
like
up?
that it wasn't like I didn't really have a moment like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been posting once every day now for like the last 8 years. So like
Mm-hmm.
thinking back all the way to my like first one isn't, I mean, there at that time, like I hadn't shared, there had been thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of
Mm-hmm.
videos that I already was aware of. So like
Okay.
I already knew there would be longevity in the career just because there's so many frauds out there. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have like an answer about my first one, but like the progression, what's more surprised me than anything else is that in the last, 8, 9 years of me doing this, I just never run out of content.
Mm-hmm.
I never
And
do.
dude, 100%, I have no idea how do these people sustain these things. And like, for every time I go to the page, I go, there's another one, and there's another one, there's another. So apparently there are a lot of fake martial arts out there.
Well,
So,
there's a big world, man. It's a big world. You got to figure anywhere you go, there's probably at least one con man anywhere at any given time. There's always
mm-hmm,
somebody looking to lie, cheat, steal their way to get
mm-hmm,
what they want. And there's a lot of those people. And nowadays, I think that what people forget is that just like any other skill, like whether it be boxing or kickboxing or
mm-hmm,
Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu, those arts involve technique. And those
mm-hmm,
techniques, when put together in your own way, make your style. Well, it's the
mm-hmm.
same thing when you're dealing with a con man. Being a con man has been around ever since people were around. And so you
Okay.
got to figure thousands and thousands of years of people learning how to con people. And so over the years, just like anything else, they learn technique, how to con people, how to manipulate people, how to brainwash people. So it doesn't surprise me too much that everywhere you go, you find these people who have more students sometimes than the people
Mm-hmm,
who are being honest.
mm-hmm,
And it's because the people who are being honest haven't taken the time to learn any technique on how to sell anybody on anything.
mm-hmm,
And so they might have the best martial arts studio in the world, but they only have 5 students.
mm-hmm.
Well, that just means that you're going to close and no one will ever know that. It's
Yep.
kind of like having the best pizza in the world, but you don't advertise it. I can
Yep.
make the best pizza in the world in my kitchen, but if I
Mm-hmm,
don't advertise it and let anybody know that that pizza exists, no
mm-hmm,
one's going to come buy it because they don't even know it's for sale. They don't even know it exists. So it's the same thing with these con men. These con men have figured out how to sell their product. Even
Okay.
if the product is utter shit, they still sell the product
Yep.
and they sell it well. Meanwhile, the guys who are really good at martial arts have no clue how to sell anything. And so no one will ever even know they existed. So what you need in the martial arts community is a balance.
Mm-hmm,
And one of the biggest stigmas that I hope that I can help with in my lifetime is that everybody has their own version of what they call a McDojo.
yep.
And a lot of times, what most people say is they think that anyone who is successful financially is a McDojo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they might not say that exactly, but that's damn sure what they mean. Because
Okay.
people who send me stuff all the time are like, that guy charges way too much. Well, what's way too much? Maybe you charge too little. If people are willing to pay that, that's not too much. He's
Mm.
targeting his audience and he's being successful, which means he probably has better equipment because he can afford it. He probably has better staff because they're happy because they're getting paid well. And he
Mm-hmm.
probably shows up on time. He probably makes sure that that studio is spotless because he can afford the chemicals and the cleaning products to keep that studio clean.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, we walk into your studio and you put everything on technique, not yourself, but walk into their studio and their technique may be great. They may have the best technique, but no one will know because they'll walk in and the studio will be dirty. The
Yeah.
equipment will be old. The people who work there will be fairly grumpy because they're not getting paid well and they're overworked, right? And so no one's going to sign up for that. And so people's minds about falling onto like using the word McDojo as an excuse not to better themselves is a problem. It's like the biggest problem I really see in the martial arts. It's like rather than, because we would never do that as a fighter. Like as a fighter, if you're a good fighter, you never put the blame on the guy who beat you. You're like, oh, he's cheated. Oh, he's a piece. No, you shouldn't do that anyway. And if you do, you need to prioritize your training.
Yep,
what
that's true.
You should go, hey man, what did I do wrong? Let's look at the tape. Talk to my coach. All right, I made this mistake. Come back, we fix it. We come back and we try it again. But like the martial arts community seems to have this stigma where if someone's more financially successful than them, they like to finger point and put blame and down them. And that's ridiculous. That's childish behavior.
And then from the progression of the page, and did you take any deep dive into any particular fake martial arts that you got yourself into?
Yeah, man. Every time I do a post or something like that, I try to find out as much information as I can. So it's helped me learn a lot. I learned about Tenaga Dalam and what Tenaga Dalam is in Indonesia. I learned that every culture has a version of chi. They all call it something different, but every culture has it, which is fascinating to me. I learned a lot about the Bujinkan. I learned a lot about George Dillman. I learned a lot about Kyoshu Jitsu. I learned a lot about basically how cons work and how to do a con. I learned a lot about the business side, which I already knew a lot about the business side, but I learned even more by studying the con men, because they were able to sell a product that was inferior, but they were able to sell it on a mass scale. So I've learned so much just by studying these frauds that I feel very fortunate that I have, because I think a lot of people sometimes, let me put it this way. Sometimes we learn more about what not to do than we learn what to do.
Okay.
So I learned a lot of what not to do based on watching frauds. Most people will never learn those same things because they won't actually look into those frauds. They'll look at it, they'll laugh, and they'll move on with their day, but they won't actually study the thought process. Why, how, who, when, all these questions that should be asked. Most people don't. They just kind of laugh at it and treat it like it's a joke, when they don't realize that those people are financially making a living off of this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like a lot of people will put so much emphasis on the marketing and the beautiful words, like whatever they put on copy. So that commodity just like heightens up in value. But the moment you start trying it out, or the moment you start doing it, you feel that, okay, I'm being being undercut here. So this is not worth the money I paid. And then you suddenly realize that, and you start opening your eyes and the truth reveals itself. So basically the prevalence of fake martial arts is just really financially driven. And
not always.
Okay.
Not always. Like definitely there are some people who do use finances as a motive to perpetuate it, right? There are definitely people who do that. They don't care much about your training. They don't care how good you get. They don't care about the curriculum. They just want to make sure that they brainwash you and teach you just enough to continue to get the money, right? I will say, like, you'll actually see that more, like the money thing, more in jiu-jitsu than you will in most other arts. And I know a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys are going to hate me for saying that. But
no, I think everyone kind of has an idea like what happens when it comes to people, especially the ones that get exposed online.
Well, I mean, like it's easy for me to just push a belt down the road. If there's no standard, right? And maybe I just don't like this person. Right? They could be great. I just don't like them. Then I won't give them their black belt, and I'll just keep pushing it off. Let them pay me like years and years and years and years. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they have a phrase called creonte.
Yeah, creonte. Like the disloyal people.
Exactly, which is bullshit. It's a bullshit word made up so that way they can keep people brainwashed. It's a lie.
Yep.
You are paying for a service. That service to learn martial arts. The martial arts studio is the business. Would I ever care what my plumber has to say if I go to another plumber? Would I ever care what my barber has to say if I go get my haircut somewhere else? How about my mechanic? Would I ever care what my mechanic thinks if I go somewhere else to get my car fixed? But yet, for some reason in the martial arts, we think that it's okay to name call and bash people when the instructor does not provide the service that the student is looking for. That's the customer. And so if the customer decides that he's going to go to another facility, if you're a real instructor, let's just be honest, and I'll say this to fucking anybody's face, I don't give a shit who you are. If you are a real instructor and you really care about the well-being of your student as an individual and as a person, you should be happy that they left you to go find something that they felt was going to be better for them. Because that means you really give a damn about your student. It's not about the money. It's not about your ego. If you really care about your student and that student decides that you are not the right fit for them, then you should wish them well and say, hey, that's cool. I get it. Hopefully you enjoy your time over there. Is there anything else I could do for you before you go? All right, cool. Nothing? All right. Well, if you ever need anything, you know where I am. I'm here for you always. That's an instructor who actually cares about his student. If you see some instructor just bashing somebody because they go to another studio, then that instructor is ego-driven piece of garbage. I don't care what degree they have.
I firmly believe that a lot of the things, or the main reason why these things happen, is because, yes, number one, ego. Number two is insecurity. Like it's a huge part of it is the insecurity of that coach, that he or she may think that people leave their gym for another one is because of like the inadequacies, or I mean, it's just a lot of it is miscommunication, but at the same time it's the insecurity and the ego of the instructor. That's why their feelings are hurt, so they go on social media or they start bashing, they're bad mouthing those students that they left for a term that is if I remember correctly, that the Creonche term was coined up by Dracolino from Gracie Baja, and he saw it from a what do you call this? A Spanish telenovela series. He was watching television. The guy's character is a Creonte, or his name is Creonche. Then he started using people. He has started using that name. He started using that term. And then it just got adapted everywhere. Then all of a sudden it became part of the whole Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu culture.
I really respect Dracolino for his instruction. But like if I ever caught him using that word, I treat him just like everybody else. It's ridiculous behavior. It's childish behavior to name call when somebody decides that you're not the right fit for them. That's kind of like it's kind of like a boyfriend in high school who's upset that is that not true? It's like a boyfriend in high school, his girlfriend leaves him, so he goes around the school making fun of her.
Yep,
like
that's true.
Be an adult. Be an adult. You decided that you want to move. Now, there is a difference between somebody who did something shady and dirty to you and somebody who just decided to go somewhere else. Like, that's not a traitor. That's a customer, and you didn't provide the service to them that they felt was right for them. Like, personally, if somebody comes to my house party and we're all hanging out and somebody says, yo, man, I got to go. I got something to do. I go, okay, cool. I'll see you later. Because I have all these people who are happy to be here. I'm going to focus my time and my effort on the people who are happy to be here. Personally, when that person leaves, I'm not going to think about them twice. I'm like, all right, cool. Have fun. Because I don't give a shit, right? And as an instructor, if I have 30 people in my classroom and 29 of those people leave, I'm going to put all my effort into understanding why that one person stayed, learn what I did wrong to make all those 29 people leave, and try to fix that so that next group of 29 that comes in, I do a better job, because that blame falls on me, solely on the instructor.
Definitely. And this is something that I hope coaches or aspiring coaches could listen to. And like, this is something that will definitely, this is a lesson that you can carry for the rest of your life. You have to be accountable. It's not, being a coach is not an easy job. It carries a lot of responsibility, but also you have to be accountable for your actions. You have to be accountable for your weaknesses or your shortcomings, whether it be in your gym or to your students. And you have to understand that these are the things that you can work on. You know, it's not the end of the world. You can work on these things. And if, like, as a coach, if my fellow coaches or aspiring coaches can learn that, it'll make the dynamic of any gym a lot more bearable. I mean, at the end of the day, the gym is a business, but at the same time, it's supposed to be a community. And this whole thing, I'm still doing my best up until now. I've been studying martial arts since I was a kid, and seeing things like this as a martial artist, it irritates me. and it pains me to see that a lot of people are being scammed or being conned by these individuals. So far in your understanding, and as much as you can share with me in this podcast, like what are the determinants, or what is the main like motivation, or what is the blueprint, what is like the structure behind con men and using martial arts as a means to scam people?
Well, I mean, it all depends on the instructor. Like every situation that I've seen has been 100% unique. So I can't
Mm-hmm.
say that there's like a particular motive, because each
Mm-hmm.
person is doing it for their own reasons.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple major ones. Money is one. Obviously, there are people definitely out there who don't have any other prospects. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have any other skills, but they know how to lie to people. And so
Okay.
what they'll do is they'll take that skill and they'll go to the one thing that's so convoluted and hard to understand that they'll just try to open up a studio. Because people
Mm-hmm.
who don't know about violence, people who don't know about martial arts and don't know about technique, it's very easy to scam them, because
Mm-hmm.
all you really have to do, and we're going to do this as an experiment, but all you really have to do is just regurgitate things that you've seen in movies. I've
That is
seen it so
true.
many. Just say whatever you heard in a movie and people will believe it because they heard it in a movie, so it's got to be true, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, Regurgitate stuff that you saw online. Like just lie. It's not that hard to lie to people who don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's the opposite if you know what you're doing. So if you're into martial arts, you could look at something and go, no, that's a lie. I know that's a
Mm-hmm.
lie. Like I can tell you for a fact all the reasons this won't work because I'm a professional instructor and I do this for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is a professional con man and he does that for a living. But you can't con an expert. You don't con an expert in something. Like if I'm
Mm-hmm.
a mechanic and I'm a certified mechanic and
Mm-hmm.
I see some guy working on my car randomly, right? And I walk up
Okay.
and I go, what are you working on? And he starts lying to me. I will know he's lying immediately because that's the thing that I do well,
Yep.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
But if I was just some regular person and some shady mechanic's working on my car and I know nothing about cars, well, I'm probably going to get conned because I don't
Mm-hmm.
know any better. So that's,
100%. Okay.
so that's one is, another is power. So you see a lot of martial arts instructors will basically make their martial art or their studio a bubble, and they don't
Mm.
allow students to leave the bubble.
Yep.
You have to stay in the bubble. You're not allowed to train anywhere else. You're not allowed to do any other training or studying with anyone else. If I catch you doing that, I'll kick you out of my studio. You can
Mm-hmm.
only compete in tournaments that are in-house versus your
Mm-hmm.
own. You never go outside of that bubble. That's because they're trying to maintain power and control.
Mm-hmm.
So if they lose that, like same thing with like Creanche,
Yep.
like good student or a good instructor. Hey, coach, is it okay if I go train at so-and-so studio? My friend is training over there for the night. He invited me to train. What a
Mm-hmm.
good instructor will usually do is go, hey, man, not a problem. Do me a favor. Have a blast. When you come back, teach me some of the stuff you learned.
Okay.
Boom. Right? Bad instructor. No, you can't go.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. Like, he's a grown man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, I'm 35 years old. You're not gonna tell me what I can and cannot do outside of the studio. That's my life. I get to make that decision. And so when I see people brainwashed like that, it's because the instructor wants the power. He wants control. And then, of course, like the last one is, power and ego, I guess, kind of go together. But I
Uh-huh.
think some instructors continue to perpetuate bullshit just to fill their ego. They're not really doing it because they want power over anyone, but they're doing it just to make themselves feel good. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll see this like what I call Steven Seagal syndrome. So like it's a real thing. Like I've looked at it, and that's the only thing I can really call it right now. Maybe I'll come up with a better name later on down the road. But like Steven Seagal, for all intents and purposes, seemed to start off as a legitimate martial arts instructor.
Mm-hmm.
Taught Aikido, happened to teach a film producer or director. I don't remember exactly which one it was. That guy was like, hey, man, you'd be perfect for this role for this movie. And he was like, okay. I mean, that's the dream for all of us as instructors, I think.
Yep.
Somebody walks up and says, hey, you
Want to be an action film star?
yeah. And so he got the opportunity, and so he did it.
Mm-hmm.
But over the time, I think he already had a little bit of ego, but then he kept getting the success, and he kept getting the fame, and he kept getting all these yes men around him.
Yep.
And I don't think that he necessarily does it because of power, because that doesn't make any sense. I think he spreads his bullshit and the way that he talks and the way he's arrogant and talks down to people. He does that specifically to boost his ego.
Yep.
And is allowed to be perpetuated by people around him who never called him out on it.
Yep.
You know, like all these stories of like how Steven Seagal was like being physical with actors or molesting women or like hitting people randomly. That's ego. He never had that one guy in his life walk up to him because they were probably scared of him. Because Steven Seagal is not a little dude, by the way.
Yeah, he's a big dude, and now he's even bigger. Now he's even bigger.
But like, yeah, so he's a pretty big dude. So like, I think people were just intimidated to ever call him out and say, "Yo, dude, you can't do that. Like, that's not right. That's not good behavior." And they just said, "Yeah, man, that's cool," and let him do it. Well, you see that a lot with martial arts instructors. Perfect example is Hatsumi Sensei. So Hatsumi Sensei runs the Bujinkan, which is ninjutsu, Nenpo. So he runs that, right? He's got purple hair and he's kind of like a weird old dude or whatever. But in my mind, I think he started off, because I don't know this dude when he was younger, but it seems to have all those Steven Seagal qualities. It seemed he started off with all the best of intentions, even though I'm pretty sure he built his entire organization on a lie. And then comes through, and then magically he starts incorporating things that just don't make sense. Like sawing his face with a sword, and he's not cut, and everybody believes it. Like, no, that's not a magic. That's a magic trick. That's not real, right? Like, I'll bring a sword to this dude and let him do it. I guarantee you, he slices his face up, right? Or like, he started doing these things like the Saki test, which is their 5th degree black belt test, where you have to either kneel and like a seiza position, or you have to sit and like Indian style.
Okay.
And they'll cross applesauce if anybody thinks I'm racist. So like, that's what it was called when I was a kid, damn it. So they take like a shinai or and they'll try to crack him on the head, and you have to sense when you're about to be hit.
Wow.
So you look this way, right? And you're relaxed, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to feel the energy of the moment, and when you feel like you're gonna get hit, dodge out of the way. The funny part about that is, one, you don't have Jedi voodoo powers. And so what happens is, they usually, the people that they want to fail the test, they just do what any of us would do. They crack them on the head, like real fast. The people that they want to have pass the test, they'll exaggerate the movement so you can feel it in the floor and the mat. You can hear it. You can look at the audience that's in front of you and see their eyes and movement, right? That's not magic. That's not a mystical power. That's just you looking around the damn room. That's not how it's presented. It's presented as some kind of supernatural power that you reach. And that's ridiculous, right? But they eat it up. They eat it up. They love it. And you can't tell anybody who's in the Bujinkan that that's not real. It's the funniest thing to me. Like, anytime somebody like hops on when I post something in the Bujinkan, like, you just don't understand. Yeah. All right. Well, how about this? I've been doing this shit for a long time, right? And there are plenty of things I don't understand. So do me a favor, enlighten me. And they never give an answer.
I mean, exactly to the point. On one side are your con men, and then, I mean, it takes two to tango. So if there's a con man, there has to be an audience. There has to be a flock of believers. So, I mean, in your experience and in your interaction with these people, why are they there? Why are they still there?
It's funny you said, dude. There's a flock of believers. Actually, for the documentary we're going to be doing, there's this guy. Just because you said that, there's this guy. His name is Lewis Martin, and he wrote this book called. The book is called The True Believers, and it's the front cover says, a powerful and engaging testimony to the social mechanics of a martial arts cult. And so this is a guy who started off looking for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He winds up going to like do a couple trial classes. And the first studio that he goes to, he actually ends up signing up. And it winds up being a complete martial arts cult. And so he winds up working his way all the way up to being the head instructor of that particular studio. And like, he works his way high up into the organization. And then years later, he realizes, oh, this is all a con. And he didn't realize it for a couple of years. So I think that that's kind of fascinating. Just because you said believers, right? Like, the people who are there, they don't start off like engaged the way that everybody else thinks that they're engaged. What we see is we see them after they've already been brainwashed. We see them at the end of that cycle, or in the middle of that cycle, where they really believe the things that have happened to them. But that's not how that works. So what happens is you get indoctrinated slowly over time. So do you want to try an experiment real fast?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So you called my studio the other day and you're looking for martial arts classes. Okay. So I say, hey man, come on in. Let's try a class out. All right.
Okay.
So let's say you walk into my studio. All right. We'll just start there. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's at the studio yet. It's just me and you. You walk in, you're there for classes. So, hey man, how's it going? How are you today?
I'm good.
Awesome. So what brings you in?
I'm very much interested in the class and what is the program.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Well, how long you been thinking about doing something like this?
Uh, right after graduating college.
Oh, wow. So a couple years, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. And where are you coming from? You coming from home or work?
I'm coming from work.
All right, cool. And so, I'm assuming you're doing this for a reason, right? So what makes you want to learn the martial arts?
Well, I was bullied when I was a kid, and I just wanted to learn something that would help me defend myself.
Okay, cool. And so I'm assuming that you have like the support of your family to do something like this?
Yep, of course, 100%.
All right, cool. Awesome. And will you do me a favor? So we have classes Monday through Saturday, all right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're every day between 7 and 8 p.m. If you enjoyed class today, what days a week would you be able to come train?
I could probably come every day.
All right, cool. So, awesome. I just brainwashed you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready to hear why and how?
Let's go. Let's hear it.
All right. So in order for me to get you signed up for my class, there are something called the 5 objections. All
Mhm.
right. So the 5 objections are all very simple. Instead of most people saying the word no when it comes to signing up on a class, they
Mhm.
say one of these 5 things 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I have to talk to my spouse. I have to think about it.
Yep.
It's far away. So you told me you were coming from work, right?
Yep.
So now you can no longer tell me it's too far away because that would be a lie, right?
That's
You
true.
told me that you've been thinking about this since college. Now you can no longer tell me you have to think about it because you've been thinking about it for years.
Mhm.
I asked you if you had the support of your spouse. You said yes, your family supports you, right?
Mhm.
And I asked you what days a week would you be able to train if you were able to make it. And you
Mhm.
said a lot. So you can
Mhm.
no longer tell me you don't have the time. You can no longer tell me that it's too far away. You can't tell me you got to think about it. And you can't tell me that you have to ask permission. You
Mhm.
already told me all those things already. The only thing
Okay.
that's left is you don't have the money, which is
Yep.
the easiest thing in the world because all I have to do is make the price so much cheaper today than it would ever be in the future. That if you were really serious about signing up, which you were, by the way, because you called us, not the other way around,
Yep.
that I would do the best deal today than I would any other day when you walk into the studio. So it doesn't, did you notice one thing I didn't talk about at all during any of that conversation?
The price.
I didn't. Well, the price comes after the class, right? So
Yep.
that's easy. So like, let's say my price is $100 a month. We'll just go with that, right? $100 a month. That's never going to waver. But I'll let you know. We also have a $150 registration fee, and also our uniform that you're going to have to get is going to be another $150.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what, you already came in for today. I'm going to make this real easy for you. I'll give you a free uniform, and I'll waive the registration fee. So now instead of paying over $400, it's only going to cost you a month. It's only going to cost you $100.
Yep.
So
And
you
that's
can't tell
gonna.
me it's too expensive because it's going to be more expensive when you come back.
Yep.
So is
That's
it going to
true.
be 400? It's going to be 100. But the one thing I didn't talk about, which is what most people seem to forget in the martial arts, is not a one time during that conversation that I actually talk about martial arts.
That's true. That's true.
Not a one. Didn't even talk about it. That's the start of how this works. Now I can use that technique to get you signed up because it's good for you. You could have told me a billion reasons why you signed up. You want to have friends. You need a mentor. You want to get in shape. You need self-defense, right? Your doctor ordered you to lose 75 pounds, right? All of those things could have been the answer. And I can provide you with those things for sure. But all I really need to do is I need to convince you that whatever reason you told yourself up to this point in your life, why you can't do any of this, it's my job as a coach to teach you how to do this.
That is
So
true.
like if somebody walks on the mat, I'm not going to just let them do whatever the fuck they want to do. Somebody just decides they're going to punch mitts however they want. I'm not going to let them do that. I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to walk up and say, hey, man, that's not bad. All right. But maybe work on that. Let me show you some few things. Okay.
Okay.
And then that's the job of a coach. Your job is still a coach outside that mat. If they're in your facility, you're still their coach. So when they walk in and they give you all those bullshit excuses, oh, man, I don't know. What would you do if they were on your mat? Would you be like, you know what? You're right. Do it how you want to do. You would never do that. So why would you allow them to do that on signups? Why would you allow them to act however they feel like inside your studio? You wouldn't. You're a coach as soon as they walk in that door. And so con men know this. They're in charge the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Instructors who are not good at business don't know this. They think
Exactly.
they're in charge on the mat. And so once they get on the mat, they become coach. And once they step off the mat, they don't care. That's a
Mm-hmm.
problem. And that's why and how it's so easy to con people. Step one of me conning you is getting you signed up.
Yep.
Now, if I'm a good coach, I'm getting you signed up because I want to help you. But if I'm a con man, I'm getting you signed up because I need to keep brainwashing you.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have you signed up for a year contract. All right, cool. So now I have an entire year to slowly but surely indoctrinate your life into being this. Finding more ways of you being here more often, finding more ways of you getting your family involved, finding more ways of this being your life now. And then whenever it comes time 5-6 years from now, you decide that, all right, well, this has been my life for 5 or 6 years. You have to make a decision. Is this going to continue to be my life, or did I waste the last 5 or 6 years of my life?
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time I actually get to the no-touch knockouts and the magical techniques, I've already brainwashed you into believing this is your friends. This is your community. This is your group. Are you willing to lose all of that? Are you willing to walk away from the last 5 years of your life? Or are you going to go along with it?
Okay. So a lot of it now is turning into from signing up one student to like putting them inside the bubble, and then emotional blackmail
And keep them there.
and keeping them there. So a lot of people are entertained, but of course, the realities of things is for sure. You have this certain notoriety with this group, with these interest groups now. I know I don't want to call them martial artists. These are interest groups. These are scammers. Have you ever had any brush up with any of them?
Yeah, of course. Like I get death threats. I get sent messages all the time. I got a death threat when I was in London.
So what was the tiniest one to a really major encounter?
Well, the tiniest one I get all the time, which is just an upset student. Like right now, if you just like I literally just got one. Hold on.
Okay.
Like, I saw it pop up. I can just read it right now. This is my life.
Oh my god, this is like a normal occurrence already.
You know, it happens all the time. Hold on, let me find it real fast.
Yeah, go for it, man. We got all the time in the world.
Oh yeah, dude. Hold on. Somebody said something. So Indonesia, especially, it's so ingrained in their culture that they truly believe like fakes, right? So let's see here. Hold on. All right, so here you go. Just a little thing, right? So I posted this video of this guy who's an Indonesian master, and he claims that he fought 200 men who had machetes and beat them. Now, we know as people with common sense that you're not going to fight 200 people who have machetes and beat them.
Exactly.
They're going to hack you to death and you will die. That's how that shit works, right? And so, but over in Indonesia, they have such a hold on the culture that like people who are of, how would I put it? People who are of influence kind of get put on a much higher pedestal than over here in the United States. Because over here in the United States, we have so many people of influence, it's kind of like a dime a dozen. Like it's just an actor, it's just a musician. Over there, they're more than that. They're elevated.
They're cultural figures.
Yeah,
based on ethnicity, based on which region or province.
So I posted this thing about him doing that, and somebody said, how do you know he's full of crap? What are your sources? Like, I have to have sources to know that this guy's lying his ass off about fighting 200 people with machetes?
It's called common sense.
Exactly.
Common sense.
Or
reality.
Like man, people got like so upset. They were like, oh, here you go. If you feel it's not real, why don't you come and try it yourself and fight here? It's like, I know it's not real. So the funny part about that is that's always like a go-to. If I had to fight to prove every point that I ever wanted to prove, right, I would just be dead because I'd have to fight all the damn time.
And you have to travel the world to prove yourself.
Like, well, does me getting beat up prove that he didn't fight 200 people? No. They're not relevant. They're not relative to each other. Does me beating him up mean that he didn't fight 200 people? No, because they have nothing to do with each other. So no matter how that fight ends up, it doesn't actually prove that he beat 200 people who were carrying machetes. You know?
That's just something that baffles me all the time. And I, for sure, it's all about the indoctrination, the culture. And then it just reinforces the fact that in in a world that's filled with people, I don't know, majority of them just probably wants to belong to a certain group. They just want to be associated with a particular community that, even though it's like drinking the Kool-Aid. They know it's bullshit. They know it's wrong. They know it's not gonna happen, but I don't know. They just kind of accepted it because they grew up in that particular cult. So I just feel for the students. I just feel that they were shortchanged for several years, and they'll end up, you know, they'll end up going home and then realize that, okay, I learned nothing. I spent a lot of money over a ton of bullshit, over something that's not gonna help me.
Yeah.
It's I just feel for the students. Whenever I watch something like this, I just feel for the students. And then so that's the tiniest of things. It's in the comment section. So
Yeah,
what
that's
is
just a little nugget.
okay? So what's one of the more major ones?
Well, I've told this story before, but it's like pretty ridiculous. So I was in London and I got
Mhm.
hired to teach a nunchuck seminar. So they
Okay.
flew me out to London. I was there for about 2 weeks. And
Mhm.
while I was there, they had like a Taekwondo tournament. And the studio that I had taught the seminar at said, hey, why don't you come with us to the tournament and, just be there to support the team? I was like, sure, I have nothing else to do. So
Okay.
I go, I'm in the bleachers, and I wind up randomly getting a direct message on my Instagram. And it
Mhm.
was from a profile that had no profile picture. It had no posts. It had nobody following, and they were following no one. It was just a blank
Okay.
profile. And so they
Okay.
sent me a message, and the only thing on the message was what I was wearing. That was it. And I was like,
Okay.
that's weird. So obviously, whoever is here
Is in the
knows,
venue. Yeah.
yeah, they know what I'm wearing. So I was like, which does happen quite a bit. It is a little creepy. Like sometimes people will like post a story, like they saw me somewhere, but they
Mhm.
won't come up and talk to me. But they'll like
Okay.
film and then they'll post it. And like that's weird. So like
Okay.
anybody, like you can just come talk to me, dude. Like I answer every direct message. I talk to anybody. So
Mhm.
that's just creepy. And
That's
so
true.
and then after I got sent that, I wrote him back. I was like, hey, man, you can just come up and talk to me. Like, come
Mhm.
over. And then after that, he proceeds to write a long diatribe about something that I had done years ago. So years ago, there was a guy in the United States who got busted as a child
Mhm.
molester. And
Okay.
so I called him out on that.
Mhm.
Now, there are rules and laws and regulations and things like that with child molestation, but
Mhm.
he kind of like, I guess you could say the deal that he took basically put him in a position to where he could still operate a school. And so,
Mhm.
so I called him out. Well, after he got called out, he actually left the country. He went over to London. I didn't know any of this.
Okay.
Apparently, he closed the school, he left the country, and when he went over to London, he went over by a different name. And so he
Mhm.
started another martial arts studio,
Mhm.
which was being quite successful. It was doing really well. Well, this dude molested a kid. So I called him out after somebody sent me the information. They were like, hey, guy, isn't this guy you called out like not so long ago? I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's the exact same dude. And so after doing research, I called him out. Well, that studio got closed down too because he had like open
Okay.
Facebook reviews. And so everybody who knew from the page went over there and gave him all these 1-star reviews and started talking about how he
Mhm.
was a pedophile.
Okay.
Well, the studio closed. Well, this guy who would text me was one of that guy's students. And he was
Oh shit. Okay.
and he was upset because he thought that I lied about it. He was like, "Oh man, that guy would never do that." And so he told me, which it's a little weird to get a threat like this in London because
Mhm.
like their gun laws are so strict. But
Mhm.
you never know what threat's going to be real. But he told me as soon as I leave that martial arts tournament that he was going to shoot me. And
Okay.
so like that was like that's a pretty big deal. It's like when
Mhm.
somebody says that they're going to shoot you, like I'm going to take that serious. So I talked to the police and I let them know, and they were like, "Yeah, it's probably just a prank, but we'll,
Okay.
you know." So
Just to be safe.
nothing ever happened. But it's definitely like one of those things where I started changing a lot about how I operate now. So
Mhm.
like anywhere I go, like if it's legal, I always have a firearm. I always have body armor in my
Mhm.
backpack. So like I don't play around anymore when it comes to that stuff.
All right. What about has anybody ever confronted you like he showed his face? I mean, he said,
Yeah,
"Hey,
I
I
mean,
saw
I've
you
run
post
into
something
people who are
about."
upset with me. Most of the time when they're upset with me, though, we're like in a public place and like
Mhm.
we just talk. I'm like, hey, dude, you're upset. Let's sit down. Like, I have no problem talking out anything. And I'll let
Mhm.
people know my opinions. I don't back down of how I feel, whether we're in face to face or whether we're online. I don't change my opinion unless you give me a reason to change my opinion. Threatening me, trying to hurt me, trying to beat me up, even if you kick my ass, isn't going to stop me from saying the truth. Like, you could beat the hell out of me. Okay, you're still a pedophile. Like, that's not going to change that, you know? And so
that's true.
I've had confrontations, but nothing that ever equal blows or anything like that. I'm actually pretty good at talking when it comes to that stuff. So things don't really escalate too much.
And then, wait, and through the course of these conversations, were you able to shed light or to like?
Sometimes, I think most of the time they just don't like me. And so like they don't like that I call out this person. Almost never the instructor. It's almost always a student. Almost always. And so most of the time they just get this like one version of who they think I am. Okay. But they've never attempted to talk to me before. They've never attempted to write me. All they know is that I called out their instructor for something. And so sometimes it's like, look, if I post a clip, a 30-second clip of that instructor doing 30 seconds of stupid shit, that doesn't mean they're a bad person. That doesn't mean they're a bad instructor. It just means that that 30 seconds is horseshit. The rest could be gold. They could cure cancer. I don't know, right? They could be out there saving orphan children. I don't know. But like, you know, Anderson Silva is probably the best example. So Anderson Silva is like one of the greatest pound per pound MMA fighters ever, right? Just a legend. The man, the way he moves, all his techniques, just incredible, right? But at the same time, he taught a ridiculous bullshit knife self-defense thing.
Yeah.
Does that mean Anderson Silva is some punk? No. Anderson Silva is still a badass. But that knife defense technique is bullshit, right? Yeah. It's very... It's not like I'm attacking the person. I'm looking at the technique and what's being taught.
I'm telling you right now, there's no one knife defense or knife disarm that works ever. Okay? Yeah, nothing.
I've done a ton of stuff, man. I've done like Huba drills. I've done like Chisao. I've done
my God.
You know, I've done like all the different stick, the Silawani and stuff like that. Like all the different the stick and knife stuff. I've done those things before, right? But like at the end of the day, all the stuff that I truly respected was the most simple stuff. Like and they call it like defanging the snake. That concept alone is a beautiful concept. Someone has a stick or a knife, attack the hand. And if I do that, I'm more than likely to hopefully injure that hand. So it's harder for them to use or harder for them to keep hold of the weapon.
That's true.
You know, keeping distance, being active, moving around. Like a knife or a stick is such an active thing that you can't really stand still and just hope that those drills of standing still are going to work. You have to move. You have to move your ass a lot. Because like a knife doesn't care who you are. Like a gun is very specific. I pull out a gun, the bullet's going to go forward and straight no matter what. A knife, it's very hard for me to accidentally shoot myself. I have to be almost trying, right? I have to be a dumbass with a gun and count all their safety. Or I have to like, the gun has to be being handled by the other person as well. With a knife, you can cut yourself easily. All it takes is a touch and you're 100%. Cut.
Yep.
So it's just funny. Like, it's funny, like when you look at certain things, especially like knife self-defense, and you get these guys and they come off so confident, but then they start teaching utter, complete, ridiculous bullshit. And you're like, well, can you try that? Because what's going to happen is most likely, usually in like Kali, Eskrima, stuff like that, you have basic angles of attack. Like usually 1 through 5. I've seen 1 through 9, right? But usually 1 and 2 is your most common.
Exactly.
I'm going to slash you, or I'm going to stab you, right? And like you have to deal with those things more than likely. Now you might deal with like a 3 or a 4 depending on whatever's going on, or you rarely get a 5. Like it's rare for somebody to just fence at you.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
You're going to get 1 and 2 all day. 1 and 2. It might just be 1. And it might just be 2, or it might be 1 and 2, but that's most likely what you're going to deal with. And when you see people like, okay, well, I'm going to block. All right, cool. Now they cut you. That's how a knife works. They're not going to stop. They're going to slash and they're going to keep going. Or they're going to stab and pull the knife away. It's like those kind of things might give you a temporary hiatus, or they'll expose the bottom of their wrist. Yeah. Right? Thank you. You got yourself killed.
There's going to be blood gushing down your forearms afterwards.
Now you're filleted open. Congratulations. And then, or what I posted the other day on YouTube is 2 guys sitting in a chair and they're going from high cover to inside parry, just slashing knives at each other. It's like, when would you ever do that? Like,
never.
What scenario would I be sitting in a chair and you're sitting almost between my legs and another chair? First of all, that's never going to happen with me. And then you pull out a knife, and rather than me getting up, getting out of the way, maybe even using the chair that I have as a way to create distance and space, I pull out my knife, and we just sit here and we have a knife fight next to each other.
Exactly.
Like, that's dumb.
I mean, there are so many out there, from Sistema down to a lot of super ridiculous, but they're really funny. Okay? Like people will use chairs, people will use fans, people will use books, and every time I watch it and we assess it, and we just have tons of laughs with it. But at the end of the day, I keep asking myself, I go like, do people really buy into this bullshit? Do they actually think that this will work? And I mean, that's why I'm really, really happy that McDojolife like blew up the way it did, and I'm very proud that I'm a fan of the page. I was one of the earlier. Me and my teammates were one of the earlier guys who followed that page, and we're very happy with the growth that it's really enjoying right now. And speaking of the documentary, I've heard of like earlier release of the plans to make a documentary. How is it now? Like, how did it start, and what's the story behind it?
Well, it's kind of like a natural progression, you know. So like the brand is growing, and as the brand grows, I just basically whenever like the only reason the brand grows, by the way, is because the followers tell me to. So like that's my business model. I just do what I'm doing every day until I hear enough suggestions to go another direction. That's it. It works. Like I never made apparel. And then all of a sudden somebody was like, hey dude, I'd buy a t-shirt. I was like, all right, well, I guess I should work on that. And so I started doing that. And then so I started using my apparel as a platform to showcase different martial artists' art. So like there's all these great martial artists who are a fantastic actual artists. And so I was like, well, why not let them design my clothes? Like give them a platform, shout them out to like over 500,000 people and say, hey, this guy's art is this. And so they get free advertisement. And I know that works because I know a lot of guys get a lot of work that way. And then I get a t-shirt I can sell. Works for me, right? And so that's how that has evolved. And now it's to the point where I need actually somebody to run the damn thing. So that's, you know, because it's grown, it's gotten big. And so like same thing when it comes to like our YouTube channel. So like people kept asking me for content, like original content. Most of the time people were giving me a hard time because I didn't have original content. So I was like, all right, well, I know what I'm talking about. Let's do original content. So now I have original content Monday through Friday. That wasn't because I wanted. It was because people asked for it. So like on our YouTube channel, I got content pumped out every day, Monday through Friday. Somebody was like, hey man, you should interview some of these famous people that you have following the page. I was like, okay. So I started a podcast, and now we have a podcast.
Okay, that's so cool.
But the biggest thing that people have always asked me, and this has been since like day one, is they will always say it like this too. This is a great idea. I wish somebody would go to these dojos and call them out in person and film it. And I was like, well, there's a lot of legality behind that. It's not as clean cut as people want it to be. It's not as easy as go into their studio and film. Over here in the United States, especially if I do that, I put myself up to a lot of legality problems. I could get sued for assault, battery, slander, liable, not having permission to film them, right? Not having permission to record their audio, not having permission to do a lot of things. But if I walk into their studio, they could just say no. It would be that easy. And then I could drive or fly all around the country and hear no, 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 no. And then have nothing and be broke. And still have a possibility of getting sued. And none of the people who follow my page are willing to pay my bills. I promise you that. And so they want all of these things, but they're not willing to understand the risk. So I was like, all right, I can do this, but I need to take the time to figure out how I can legally do this. And so I spent like 4 years trying to figure out how to legally call people out for bullshit. And it all boils down to one thing. If it's my opinion, I just have to state it as such. If it's a fact, I state it as a fact. What I cannot do is state something as a fact that is not factual. And so after I really kind of figured out like the basis of doing that, I use YouTube as the start. And so, which I had a lot of hiccups, by the way. I almost got my YouTube channel taken down because I wasn't doing legally. I was doing things and messing up. And I was like, all right, well, how do I do this? And so now, like clockwork, every Monday I pump out a new McDojo breakdown. So I can actually call people out now without worrying about it getting taken down.
Okay.
So half the battle, by the way, is a disclaimer. So if you're on YouTube and you put out stuff, make sure you add a disclaimer, because if you don't, they'll probably take it down.
Okay.
So once I started figuring that out, I was like, all right, well, we've gotten this far. Now it's time to move forward. Let's go ahead and start working on how and why I want to do this. Well, I'm not just going to go to somebody's studio and call them out. I'm not going to go into somebody's studio and just fight them. Because again, like what we just talked about earlier, I don't think that solves the problem. Yep. So what I did was I kind of took the model of something here in the United States called the Truth Campaign. So here in the States, the Truth Campaign was an anti-smoking campaign, and all they did was just push commercials out with facts. That was it. They would just, here's a commercial, here's facts, and that would be it. Okay. And so smoking here in the United States has taken a nosedive. Like there are people who smoke, but not nearly as much as they used to. And that was partially because the Truth Campaign kept putting out all this information about how bad smoking is for you. Well, I was like, why don't I do that? Rather than, because they didn't walk up to the president of Marlboro Company and punch him in the face. Yeah. Like that wouldn't solve anything. What they did was they shared facts and information and let people make their own decisions. I was like, that's smart. So now that we go forward, I was like, let's do a documentary. And the idea here will be, instead of attacking people like individuals, instead of going after individual schools, let's talk about the broad problems that there are. Let's talk about how there are over 450 cases of pedophilia in the martial arts in the United States alone from 1987 to 2018. Let's talk about that as a problem, right? Let's talk about cult behavior. Let's talk about how easy it is to manipulate people. And let's talk to people who were victims. And let's talk to people who were actual con men who ran the con. Let's make an experiment in which we con people on purpose to see how easy it is to do, right? And so now we have like a general outline in which we can do it. We don't alienate anybody's art. We don't alienate any individual people. And then we can talk to people who are currently running cons, and they can take the opportunity to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Tell me how you're not a con man. Show me. I'll put it out there just how it gets put, right? I'm not going to sit here and manipulate it for my personal gain. Tell me. Like there's one martial arts studio that says they can cure blindness. Like you can blindness? Yeah, you laugh, right? They're doing financially well. Okay. Yeah, so like, but that's the fun part about doing this experiment is I can go call people out without getting sued. I can make it an experiment, and I can be open and honest from a middle ground perspective. I'm coming into this saying, I don't know. I have my own beliefs, but I don't know. Like, okay, you think that you could move somebody with your mind. All right, cool. I'm all for it. Prove it to me. Don't do it to him. Do it to me. You think you can knock somebody out by chopping them in the bicep. Okay. I'll sign the waiver. Do it to me. Chop away. Now, I can tell you, I've been around, and I've been in a lot of fights. Right? I've done a lot of tournaments. I've done a lot of boxing. I've done a lot of kickboxing. I did a lot of sport karate. I've been beat up a lot. One thing that I've never had happen to me is I've never been knocked out. So if you can knock me out by chopping me in the bicep, you're going to do something that nobody else has been able to do. Oh, yeah. You know? This
is all those pressure point attacks.
I mean, do it. And so that's the fun part of the experiment. It isn't to make fun of them. And it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with new students who are about to sign up for a martial arts class, what they're about to get themselves into, and understanding what they're about to sign up for. Rather than just saying, I'm going to make fun of you, that doesn't help anything. I want to have evidence and proof and stats and statistics and say, look, this is evidence that this doesn't work. This isn't me making it up. This isn't my opinion. This is a fact that what these people are teaching you is a lie. And I think that that's what's missing, because up to this point, no one has ever done a documentary, a real full-length documentary on frauds in the martial arts. It's never been done.
Yep, 100%. And this is probably the first one. There are exposés. There have been probably bite-sized or small features, but the full documentary, no.
YouTube, but there's never been something made of original content.
Yeah, no. I haven't encountered one. Not really. So are you in the middle of production? Are you
No, well,
do you have a partner?
We were film in April. So April was our original film date. And then COVID hit and all the gyms in California got shut down.
Yep.
And so we were like, well, we can't film a documentary about martial arts schools without
martial arts.
And so we were like, all right, well, we'll have to wait. And so we reset our film date for August. So we were supposed to film the second week in August. Unfortunately, now we went to a second round of lockdowns in California. Like they just announced it last week. So I was supposed to take a road trip starting yesterday and drive across the country making content all the way until I got to Fresno. And then we would film for like a month straight and then edit for another month. But unfortunately, COVID happened again. So now we're on lockdown again. So now I have to wait again. And so it's been the most frustrating thing in the world.
So it's like you already have like partner gyms, or do you already have key destinations that
we storyboarded everything already. Everything's ready. The only thing that's not ready is the law. Like everything keeps getting shut down. So like we only, in all honesty, for this documentary, the way that we have it structured, we only need like 15 days worth of filming. So we're just gonna film straight. That's all we really need. That gives us all the interviews we want. That gives us all the information we need. That gives us all the experiments we want to do, like that. We'll just bang it out. And then we can take that and structure it to make a cohesive story in post-editing and give you guys a good solid hour and a half real documentary about fake martial arts.
That's amazing. Oh my God. I mean, there are so many things. There's so many good plans pre-COVID. It's like it just really, COVID just really messed everything up. So everything's rescheduled. And so how, like with all the lockdowns or the shutdowns happening over there, like how is the martial arts community? Like how are the MMA gyms? How are the jiu-jitsu gyms?
It depends on where you are. So like here in the United States, the federal government has basically left it up to the individual states to regulate themselves. So our main political body, like our president, was pretty much just like, hey guys, we're going to treat this by a state basis. You guys handle it on your own. And so now each state has a different rule, a different regulation, like, and they're night and day depending on where you are. So like in Georgia, like the state of Georgia, the governor there, he said it's illegal to require anyone to wear a mask.
Okay.
Well, meanwhile, in California, you have to wear a mask. So if you go outside, you have to wear a mask. You don't have a choice. So that's like night and day difference. So it makes it very difficult to plan a production especially when most of our production, 90% of what we're filming is all in California. And not just California, like Southern California, where most of these regulations are hit hard. Like I can't film a guy with a wireless mic and a mask.
Yeah.
It's going to sound like shit.
It's going to sound terrible. Not unless you put your lapel underneath the mask and then
or like, we can't, like here in Jacksonville, we have to wear a mask when we train, because if you're indoors, you have to wear a mask. Like, do you know how ridiculous it is to wear a mask while you roll jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, super.
Like, it's like waterboarding yourself. Like the mask starts to get wet and you're trying to breathe through this wet mask and you're moving around and trying, like, it sucks. It's terrible. I did it once and I was like, nope, I'm done. I'll wait. I'll just wait for the COVID to be over, man. Like I'm waiting till that regulation is gone, because it's so dumb. I can sweat on you, I can bleed on you, but I can't breathe on you.
That's weird. That's super weird. That part is like, and I think, especially when it comes to jiu-jitsu, it's the most hit industry when it comes to COVID, because there's no social distancing there. There's just
you have to put your hands on another human being.
Yeah.
Like, I feel bad, dude. I feel bad for so many As a matter of fact, I told people, it was like when it first hit, I was like, anybody who needs like martial arts business advice on how to get you through this, just let me know. And I've been doing free hour-long consulting sessions. Just like, yo, let's sit down, let's figure out how to get you through this. And like I was booked, man. I was doing like 4 a day for like a month. And every day I didn't do it for any money. I did it completely free. Like, I want those studios to be successful. If the martial arts industry collapses, this doesn't exist anymore. There's no need for me to exist. So I need martial arts studios to exist. I need them to do well. I need real martial arts studios to financially be successful and prosper, or this is a dying industry.
That is true. And then, so as the page keeps pumping out content, like, but by the way, when it comes to you posting on social media, do you vet it, or do you do your own research, or just people submit videos to you? They go
No,
like,
man, I get both. Like I have like tons of content that I have saved. Like
mm-hmm,
some of it I like kind of like hold on to because I don't know whether or not I need to post it now or
mm-hmm,
what kind of issues Instagram might have because every place has their own regulations. But like I have tons of content that I just don't put out yet just because
mm-hmm,
it's like I don't know if it's appropriate to put out,
mm-hmm,
basically. Like kids getting abused, people dying, like really, really messed up stuff I get sent every day.
mm-hmm,
But anytime I get sent something, first thing I do is I use my own best judgment. I look
mm-hmm,
at it and I go, okay, well, what could this be for? Is it a drill? What's the purpose of what's going on? And if I can't answer that question, then I try to research who these people are, what art they're teaching, how much of this garbage are they teaching. And then if it's just like a one-off, unless it's really weird, then I
mm-hmm.
just won't post. I'm like, hey, thanks for
Okay.
sending. If it's something that I'm like, oh, these people are doing nothing but teaching this garbage, let me go ahead and put a stop to that right now,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll post. But I have tons of stuff saved, but I get like 250 messages a day roughly on Instagram alone. And so I try to answer all of them. Like if you saw my phone right now, like my phone is just like ridiculous with like just random stuff that I get.
At least now people know that you answer Instagram messages. You're the one who's answering. You don't have anybody who answers it for you.
It's mine. It's something I make sure that I personally take care of. Like it acts as my own personal page as well. Like this is just like I pretty much just exist through that medium. Like that is what I do. And so I want to make sure that I gave myself 2 rules for myself when I started this. One was I said that I was going to go on absolutely anybody's show who showed interest. Anybody. Like I've been on people's shows who I was their first guest ever.
Wow.
Like
Nice.
they have like 1 follower on their YouTube, and I was like, yeah, I'll do your show. I don't care. Like I'm not that important, so I'm happy to help if it helps. And then the other rule that I gave myself was I'm going to make sure I answer every direct message I ever get. Even if it takes me forever to do, I will answer all of them. And like I got to tell you, if I miss like a week and I don't go through there and answer messages for like a week, it's damn near impossible for me to catch up. So I try to stay on top of it.
Wow. Okay, Rob, let's wrap this up. Mcdojolife on Instagram and on YouTube. We will definitely wait for the documentary. Any parting words there, my friend?
Yeah, man, you can catch me on pretty much any social media platform at Mcdojolife. On Reddit, it's the Mcdojolife because somebody opened up Mcdojolife without my permission. They don't post and they don't answer their direct messages. So it's just sitting there. But also, if you want to keep up with the documentary, we have a page that's a perk just for people who have helped donate. So they get all the up-to-date information. It's Mcdojolife DOC on Instagram. If you just go there, all the up-to-date information is all right there. Once we start filming, I'm making original content just for that page, stuff that's not going to be seen anywhere else. And once we film, it will be posting several times every day that we film. Even when we're editing, we'll make sure we put content out there just so everybody who has donated, they get up-to-date information. If you have not donated, guess what? Tough cookies. I'm not answering your message about the documentary because people paid for that. It's not fair to them. So.
Okay, I will link everything on the description box so that when you guys want to visit or donate or see developments for the documentaries. Bro, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. You're doing a good service for the martial arts industry and the martial arts community. And with that, that's what Coach Franco says. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Coach Franco Says would like to thank the following sponsors for making this episode possible.
Be in the moment. Have the faceless emotion. Beware the robot face. I am Nuts and Crosses. Get yours on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Gatorade. Because nothing beats Gatorade. Community and culture. Simply good vibes in the local jiu-jitsu scene. Visit Ikero Collective at ikero.ph. Simply better dentistry. Designer mouthguards and the best dental service in the heart of Makati. Visit the Santos Dental Group and Oral Surgery Center. Book an appointment on their Facebook page. Beat bacteria and viruses. Get Nano Silver Immune Support Supplement. Order your bottles on their Facebook and Instagram pages. For local martial arts news in the Philippines, visit Local MMA on Facebook and listen to one of my favorite podcasts, Destroy MNL. My life is about providing value and helping others achieve their goals. Please, help me make more podcast episodes, video tutorials and educational content that will benefit everybody. Support this channel by clicking the link in the description box. Thank you for your support, and I will keep making content that matters. That's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed making it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.